All right, before we get into it today, just want to give a shout out to all the Patreon subscribers. And if you don't know what Patreon is, it's a way for you to help support the show. Go to patreon.com/bigtruth and you will see all the different levels of patronage that there is. There's a free level and then there's paid levels if you wanted to financially support the show. And all of those levels come with their own different degree of benefits and things like that, you know. So, yeah. And membership has its privileges, and the higher up you go, the more privileges you get. That's just how it rolls, right? Yeah. Now, if you happen to find yourself in the unfortunate situation where you're in a motorcycle accident, the first thing you do is call the dudes over at the Glassman Injury Attorneys. They are the specialists in this, and they have bulldogs. Call anywhere in the country, 617-777-7777, on Instagram at Gotta Get Glassman. But yeah, don't get a slouch. Get someone that's going to rep for you like a rabid hyena, right? Gnashing through shit. But yeah, give them a call. Gotta Get Glassman. Tell them True sent you. Actually, you know, I'm wearing the shirt today, but you're not going to see this part on video. If you have a need for some artwork, the first place you need to go is Tattoo Flash Collective over at tattooflashcollective.com. They obviously sell tattoo flash for tattoo shops, but they have art in all different sizes, prints, whether you need something like the size of a postcard or like a huge poster, they got you covered. So something for your house, your office, your garage, your shop, your cubicle, your workspace, whatever. You know, get some stuff from Tattoo Flash Collective and enhance your life, right? Use the promo code BigTruth at checkout. You get 10% off your order. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you get even more off your order. But you got to be a Patreon subscriber to find out what that code is and get the extra percentage off. If you want to support my motorcycle shop, it's Chopperhead Custom Cycles. Over 20 years in the game, we're a full service brick and mortar motorcycle shop. What does that mean? There's a lot of lifestyle companies out there, right, that are selling like t-shirts and whatever. We are the lifestyle. This is what we do every day. So we build custom bikes, we service bikes, we do motor work, speed work, you know, whatever you need, performance stuff, whatever it is. Or you just have, you know, an old bike that's got some issues, mechanical issues, you know, we got you. So whether you need an oil change or a full custom bike built, hit us up. Now, and if you're in the Northeast, we're a shop, so you can come in, right? It's not like some online only bullshit. You know, you can come in. We got a parts counter. We have a showroom. We got an area with all like riding gear and helmets and apparel. So, and we're a chopper shop, right? There's like not a lot of us left. So come on in. 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts, 508-995-6764. So yeah, obviously if you're local, we welcome you on in. If you are too far, then you can always go to chopperhead.com, and that's spelled CHOPPAHEAD, and support us by grabbing some swag. You know, we got t-shirts and hoodies and hats and whatnot. And we always have, you know, whatever you need for your motorcycle, and a lot of stuff I can get you almost next day if I drop ship it from a warehouse that's closer to you. You know, if you need an exhaust or something like that. So hit us up if there's something you don't see on the site that you need for your bike. Just shoot us an email, truth@chopperhead.com, or give us a call, 508-995-6764. Go to the podcast website, bigtruthpodcast.com, for more information on the show. And I also encourage you to hit the shop tab on top there so you can get some swag and rep the show from wherever you're at. Got some new designs coming soon, too, and we'll do some more limited stuff here and there. But without further ado, we're going to get into it today. It's my man Frank. He's a tattoo artist, but also someone's going to tell you, he's an author. He just wrote a book called Freedom Rekindled, and is going to tell you a little bit if you want to disassociate from the corporation. He's going to get into that, and it's much like many episodes ago I had Brandon Joe Williams on. It's kind of in that vein, so there's going to be a lot of information here that you'd be interested in. So check it out.
The Big Truth
Yes, once again, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the Big Truth Podcast, and I'm stoked to have my man Frank Whittington here. For those of you that may not know Frank, he's a tattoo artist for many years. How long you been tattooing?
24 years.
Yeah. He's in the over 2-decade club on that, and also an author. And someone that's a advocate for freedom, and we're going to get more into that as we go. But I want to thank you for coming on today, Frank. Where you at now? You're out in the woods of Tennessee?
Yes, sir. We're out in Holiday, Tennessee. It's right in between Nashville and Memphis.
Okay.
It's like the half, but we're out in the sticks.
Yeah.
So if I lose a little bit of connection and stuff out here, but we'll do our best.
Yeah. It's doing that little bit of choppy stuff that we were talking about earlier. But hey, we'll do. You're in the mountains there. Actually, are you in the mountain area? Is it?
We kind of considered the foothills of we're all the way across the state, but it's the foothills. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice, man. I might pick your brain about Tennessee stuff later because I have a lot of friends out there, and I know that's a good place. I know that it's a very more freedom inclined state than a lot of these Northeast places and whatnot. But
one is we moved out this way.
Yeah. But that's what I'd want to do though. Like I'd want to be out like kind of like in a quieter area. Like Nashville's cool, Memphis is cool, Knoxville's cool, but I don't want to be around people anymore.
Yeah.
I just have to go ahead.
I definitely understand a little bit more solitude. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older.
Yeah, well, I think that comes with it. So, like, why don't we go back to before we get into the book and all the freedom topic? Let's talk a little bit about tattooing and like how did you find your way into tattooing? And it was a different. And we talk about tattoo culture. I can talk about this stuff all day, but I definitely want to get to the topics of the book, and because that's a very timely thing, but. Tattoo culture is so different now than it was 20, 30 years ago. But, talked a little bit about like what draw you to tattooing and how you got involved in that. And let's talk a little bit about that career first.
The first tattoo I saw was, a military tattoo my grandpa had.
Yeah.
And I could tell right away my parents were not thrilled with it, which made me way more thrilled about it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
It's like a rebellious kid, you know what I mean? So I did a tattoo on myself when I was probably 13. It was not good, obviously.
Like and India ink stick and poke type of situation.
You already know.
Yeah. I got mine when I was 15. Yeah.
It was, I convinced my mom that I was going to work on some calligraphy, so I needed some India ink. And back then was a art store called Ben Franklin. And so she took me there, and I got the ink, and I ended up getting like a little X-Acto knife and just kind of carved in the image and rubbed ink in it, and immediately tried to wash it off. Like, oh shit, I've done it now.
Yeah.
And hidden that thing for about 3 years before my parents ever found it, and they came unglued.
Yeah.
About that.
Where was it? Where did you put it?
It was on my chest.
Okay.
And some Japanese kanji. I was taking martial arts at the time, and it was just the kanji of that style of martial arts.
Okay.
And from there, I got my first tattoo when I was 18, and I was working for this guy. I was doing home health care, working for a guy who was a quadriplegic, and he made friends with a tattoo artist. He was getting tattooed. So being through that introduction, I started getting tattooed professionally at 18. And I was maybe 22. Back in like 99, I opened up a shop just doing body piercing.
Okay.
After a year, couple tattooers, and just kind of asserted myself into helping them out. Any chance I could break down, clean up, set up. And then I got to where I was getting familiar with the machines. So I was, in the back cutting springs and trying to figure out the tuning.
Yeah.
And then before I had people that I pierced, and they were like, well, if you ever start tattooing, you can practice on me. And I just kind of took him up on it. So I'm essentially self taught, but had a lot of coaching along the way. Just a whole lot of, man, that's messed up. Don't do it like that.
Mm. Did you do like an official apprenticeship, or did you just kind of like, since you owned the shop and you were doing you were doing piercing, you just kind of picked the brains of the guys you had working with you?
Yeah, no official apprenticeship at all.
Yeah.
Just
Not, yeah, not that that even really matters, but that was just more of the way back then, you know?
and it's honestly, looking back in hindsight, surprising that I was able to get the traction that I got, to be able to work in some of the shops across the country that I've worked in over the years, without having that lineage behind me. But I've always said that I think personality can take you a long way if you can stay relatively humble and stay in that mindset of learning and letting people know, look, I'm here to learn. People kind of respect that, and it definitely helped out as I was coming up in tattooing.
That's like anything, man. Attitude is absolutely like one of the major components of things. If you're a dickhead, no one's going to want to teach you anything, you know what I mean? But like if you're humble and you like show a genuine interest and you're like really into it and you do whatever it takes to learn, people see that and appreciate it, you know?
Right. Right. Where did you start tattooing?
I don't tattoo. I do laser removal. And I own a shop because it was me and my best friend Ryan used to own the shop together. He passed away unfortunately a couple years ago, and so it's just me. But I got two veteran tattoo artists working with me over there, both over 20-year tattooing, Wayne Liberty and Dan Tantillo. But yeah, no. So, like I've been around tattooing my whole life and I love the creativity of it. I think I could do the mechanics of tattooing. I just can't draw. And I never had the mental faculty or acuity to sit down and learn to draw. I'm too like all over the place for that. You know what I mean? So drawing isn't my standpoint. Like I have artistic visions for things and can be creative. It can tell someone what I want or like how to do rudimentary graphic design, but like the hand-eye coordination for drawing, nah.
Well, in all honesty, I didn't know how to draw until probably 2 or 3 years after I started tattooing.
Yeah.
Classes. But at that time, and you know as well as I do, a lot of it was just flash. So if you had the flash on the wall and you could trace and mimic what you're looking at, that was kind of how I did the tattoo. But that was before every tattoo had to have a deep-rooted meaning, and you had to come up with a story as to why you're getting the tattoo.
Yeah. Tattoo still had outlines.
Really, really big outlines.
Yeah, thick, nice thick ones to hold it in.
You just felt like finished with just the outline.
Yeah. The audio is clipping out a lot. I'm just trying to think of what might be going on. It was good for a minute, and then now the last thing you were talking, it was clipping out a lot. We'll monitor it. This is gonna be on YouTube too, so watch the video and you'll be able to pick. If you're listening to it, go watch it on YouTube later. And you can see. But yeah, man, like I grew up in like in punk rock and hardcore, and tattooing was a big part of that world, especially 30 years ago. And I remember the days when tattooing was still like tattoo shops were still pirates' dens, like, you know what I mean? They were, it was like you got kind of nervous going in there if you didn't know anybody, and you had to you paid your dues by just sticking around because the doorman was always an asshole, and you know what I mean, and everything, and it was just like a more rough and tumble, and I love that, you know what I mean? And I know tattoo's way more service oriented, and a lot of these places look like little spas now and whatnot, and it's like everyone's welcome stuff, like, you know what I mean? And whatever. But like I miss the days when like someone who had a throat tattoo or a neck tattoo or a face tattoo, that meant something. You know what I mean? Like you were like, yeah, watch out, that dude ain't right. You know what I mean? But it's like what's your I'll talk about anything you want with tattooing, even though like I'm like I don't have full place because I'm not a tattooer, but I've been around since I've 15, 16, I've been hanging around tattoo shops, and like my best friends are tattoo artists, and you know what I mean? A lot of my best friends are tattoo artists and whatnot. So I love the culture of tattooing, because it was another thing where it was like underground, and, you know, it was just kind of like you had to seek it out. And if you wanted to learn it, what I really loved was that, you know, there was like a process to it, and it was like, before the internet, it was like arcane knowledge. Like you had to like get in with somebody and like really, you know, like someone taught you it as a trade, and, you know, and whether it was like you had friends that would do that for you, or like you apprenticed and you paid your dues and you were still making needles. Like right now, if every needle supplier stopped, you could probably still keep tattooing, because you would know how to make your own machine.
Absolutely.
You'd know how to make needles. You know, you could, you know, autoclave things, like, and reuse things. It wouldn't be all throwaway cartridges and whatnot. But I feel like a lot of that part of the culture is lost now, you know?
You know, most people don't even know what a solder iron is, and that was like a staple of the tattoo shop.
Yeah.
You know, if you had to fix, if you had to make needles, if you had to, you know, repair a clip cord or a foot switch, you had to have a solder iron.
Yeah.
You know, and
Soldering iron in a monocle for the needles.
you're done.
Yeah.
But things that are kind of in the past, and in a roundabout way, the way that I live life now, I'm trying to bring that back in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the tattoo. If you want to have a drink while I'm tattooing, if you want to smoke a cigarette, if you want to fire up a bowl, I don't care. This, you know, they're paying for the tattoo. Everything else that happens, that's their experience while getting the tattoo.
Yeah.
They get to create. That's part of the nostalgia that we are lacking right now in the industry. There's a time and a place for everything. Everything that's happening in the industry and tattooing in general, I'm fine with it. I don't grudge anybody for the way things are done. People were really mad at me for the way that I came up without an apprenticeship and got notoriety in small community. But that's okay. It worked for me. And then whenever I was done with that, I moved on to something else. But the goal for me is to show people there's another way you can do this. You know, you don't have to be out on Front Street. You can take it back. And what I mean is you can take it back underground. Maybe you need a following, you need a clientele, or you need to be in some type of, you know, back then it was the punk rock scene. It was the biker culture.
Yeah.
You know, subcultures of the standard. And if you could get in with those guys, that's where you got your foot in the door. And I think we can do that again. It's just a matter of showing people by example how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really with anything, you know what I mean? You build a lot of motorcycles too, don't you? Or you built?
Yeah. I mean, I'm at Chopperhead now. That's the shop behind me. Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's like everything got watered down because TV shows co-opted the culture and then got people involved in it that would have never been involved in it. And it's cool because I'm sure some great people have come into motorcycling or choppers or, you know, tattooing because they saw it on TV, you know what I mean? Like any one of the plethora of shows that, but, you know, it just brought everything more into the mainstream. The thing I always will rebel against is when all these like big companies try and, you know, get involved and co-opt it. And, you know, I'll always be resistant to that because, you know, I'm going to be punk rock till I die. You know what I mean? And I will always resist that. You know, and we'll always be more on the fringe end of things. And I mean, what's cool about tattooing is, like you said, that there's still a lot of people that follow, like, there's still a lot of old timers around, you know what I mean, that still do things the traditional way and can do things the traditional way. I just feel like, I think what it comes down to is, I feel like people have more respect for something they earned, and, you know, however they earned it, like, you know, like spending a couple years with, you know, either doing an apprenticeship or like, you know, just grinding. And it's like, nowadays people see tattooing as like, you almost see like, the part that I don't like is that it's like, it almost is like people look at it as an easy way to make money or something. You know what I mean? Like so people get involved in it that normally wouldn't, like, oh, I can draw. Like, I'm just going to tattoo because, you know, I'll make money at that. And then, you know, guys that have been tattooing for 3 months are owning shops now. You know what I mean? I mean, and sometimes they're very horrible, and they don't care, and so they'll just do $40 tattoos all day, because they're doing quantity, not quality,
Sure.
and and they just, that to me, that's the things that I just don't like, because I feel like you're ruining it, because someone's going to go in there and have a really horrible experience, and then it's just like, and then or the worst thing is like I bought my laser, my last laser I bought off of Carl at Jinx Proof, because someone was doing laser tattoo removal that shouldn't have been, and they bought like a $3,000 Amazon laser or eBay laser, and they were fucking people up, and then that ruined it, because someone went to the health board and they just shut down laser removal in DC for anybody unless you were a licensed physician. So at any point, I feel like people like that could potentially like ruin things for everybody. But people that came in the old way, I feel like have a little bit more love and respect for things than someone that's just like, oh, I've been tattooing 3 months, I'm going to go open a shop down the street from the guy that taught me. You know what I mean? Like,
I think the comfort I find in just allowing that to happen is the universe has a way of keeping balance.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the meant to be in tattooing, the people who really assert their soul into the craft, they're gonna survive, no
yeah,
matter how slow or busy it is. The people who are just trying to get in to either look cool, to be cool, to just make quick money, they're going to weed themselves out. And next thing you know, they're going to be back to, whatever it was they did prior to. And I've watched enough people come and go, and everything is always in balance. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It may shaky, it may seem rocky at times, but balance is always kept.
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of joy. And just knowing that, like, I work with a lot of people and they'll see another shop open up. I'm like, well, are they good? Well, no, they suck. I'm like, well, why are you worried?
yeah,
What's your concern if you know that they're not doing as good of a job as you? Are they taking anything from you, or are they marketing to people who can't afford you? Because that's fine.
yeah, yeah,
There's for every seat, and you know this is a very obvious craft. If it's good, it's really good. If it's bad, it's really bad.
yeah, yeah. And that's what
There's a balance.
yeah. And then there's things that are so bad that it's like hysterically bad, hysterically funny bad, and there's a lot of horrible tattoo. And I love that, because that's job security for me as someone doing laser removal.
Exactly. I mean, there would be no need for laser removal if it wasn't for bad tattooers.
Yeah. Or just people getting,
That,
or people who made poor life decisions and got tattooed on their face or hands or something, and then can't get a job, and, aren't really
sure.
about the life, and like are trying to live a regular life. I just noticed that you had a hero tattoo shirt on. Shout out to the
Yeah,
Crib brothers, Jeff, and yeah, those good dudes, man. I speaking of like motorcycles and the cross between these worlds, like I met them years ago in North Carolina at the old smoke out shows, and
I think I ran into you back in the. This is back in the Salisbury days, back
yeah,
way. Um, and I can remember the. Did you guys used to set up
yep.
a booth? Yeah, yeah. I very much remember. I think I used to even have your shirts from Chop Ahead.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I'll send you some new ones. Um, yeah, no, those were good times, man, because everything was just starting to pop, and it was exciting, and like, it was cool, and it wasn't like so wild yet. And if you went to the smoke out, it was still like 90% choppers, you know what I mean? And it was just wild. And it was like Salisbury was pretty lawless.
great. I had the best time going out there.
Yeah.
I had an blast, and we have a right down. It's only about 20 minutes from us. It's Loretta Lynn's ranch.
Okay.
And
You're close to that.
yeah, yeah, real close. And I went out there once for a day, and I would think I was expecting or hoping it was going to be reminiscent of the old Salisbury
Yeah.
or Rockingham, and it was not. It was pretty awful and
Yeah.
crazy expensive, and it just kind of I didn't really have a use for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think we're always looking for that thing. I keep threatening to have a little bike show out here on the property once I get a little further along, have a little bit more shower houses and
Yeah.
toilets available. But I don't know. Maybe down the road we'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see.
I feel like the some of that stuff, it's magic in a bottle. It's hard to rebottle that. Something like on your property would probably work out awesome. But like a lot of the shows now, it's different times and everyone's got cell phones and cameras on them, and people just aren't as present, or they're more worried about filming something than actually just living it. And
Just
yeah, exactly, just enjoying it. Yeah, and it's like, I'm like, do you really go back and look at all this shit? You know what I mean? Like that's what I hate. I hate when I go to a concert and someone's filming the whole concert. I'm like, are you really going to watch this again? Why don't you just watch it right now in real life and absorb it and enjoy it in full life than watching it on a small screen later? You know what I mean? Like, I understand. Take a couple pictures, take a video of a song, but like the whole time, relax, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing well, I don't have any documentation of any of the trips I made out to North Carolina. That was before we had phones that recorded everything. I still had a flip phone back then riding cross country.
Yeah.
That was, and it's hard to break away from the technology when you've had it for so long. Yeah. Now it's the navigation. It used to be, we'd write down the trip route on the gas tank, or
tape it to the tank. Yeah.
No need for that.
Or if you got real inventive, you put a bunch of layers of painter's tape on the tank, you know what I mean? Like, so that you could just peel it off easy later, and it didn't damage the paint. And you just wrote it right on the painter's tape. Are you still riding at all?
I have a bike, but when I moved out here, I kind of sold everything. I had about 9 motorcycles.
Yeah. A
few years ago. I have one basket case I have yet to build, and I've got an old Evo Heritage that I ride.
Yeah.
But probably haven't put more than 15 miles on it in the last 2 or 3 years. It's a little sad, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but that's just kind of my efforts have turned toward building these buildings and getting this property built. So
yeah, well, you're building a nice compound out there,
Get the compound built, and it's generating some money as we go. We rent this little cabin out here, and we have intention of building a few more as we go.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, you're living the dream. So why don't we get into that? Because and we can talk about more about tattoo stuff and everything either, but I definitely want to get into it. This is your book here. I told you I got it and I read it. Freedom Rekindled. You can get it on Amazon. Can they get it direct from you too, or is Amazon the best spot?
Through Amazon. I haven't even I have a copy, but I haven't bought like a bulk of copies to sell in person or anything. I've been sitting on the information for a while, and I thought it was time to just like put it out.
Show people this picture. That's a Tennessee ass picture right there. Look at that. The back cover, yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give people a little easier understanding of why I made the decisions, because people raise an eyebrow. It's kind of controversial.
Yeah.
What I'm doing and how I'm restructuring things.
But why don't we get into a little bit about that before you get too deep into it? Just like for anyone that listened to the Brandon Joe Williams episode a while back, if not, go back and listen to it. He's talking about becoming like a state national, or some people go the sovereign citizen route. State national is a little bit different. And what I really like about your book is that it's step by step and it's easy to read. I read this whole thing in on a Sunday, you know what I mean, in the morning when I got up, and I've never read a book cover to cover, but yours I could. And it's all just, easy to understand basic steps. Like, this is what you do. But why don't you talk a little bit, what's the end game for somebody, you know what I mean? Because, not everyone might be familiar with the whole United States corporation and separating from that part of it. Because it sounds weird. It's like, oh, so you're leaving the country? And it's like, no, I'm just leaving the United States corporation. I'm still a citizen of the United States, of America, but just I'm not in the corporation of it, and you're still like do you go the more like the state national or sovereign? Or
that's basically exactly what I did. Is just, we have, and I don't know how deep in your woods you want to go. Like I said, you've had Brandon Joe on before, and he gets way deep in the woods, and he's got a lot of infinite knowledge on this stuff,
He
but some
does.
of it's kind of hard to digest.
Yeah.
It's like
And he's rapid fire and he's all over the place, and then he's like citing case law and all this and that, and it's like you're like, yo bro, I'm not an attorney, like, you know, like, but that's what I liked about your book. If anyone that's interested in this, pick this book up, because it's literally just, you know, we're going to get into it now, but it's just literally easy to follow, step by step, almost like checklists and shit, like do this, then this, then this. And
that's what I did have as I was trying to figure it out. So that was my end goal, is to get it condensed down to a tangible way of seeing what's happening and how you can exit that system. Everybody wants to gripe about my guy lost the election, or you know, my whatever. There's teams, you know,
oh yeah,
this team where you don't even have to participate in that system at all. That's one set of framework, but over here is a very similar but different set of framework, the original framework. And it's, you know, we have two totally different systems operating simultaneously.
yeah,
So we have a corporate system and we have our common system. So the corporate system, you might hear words like maritime law, statutory law, your big government systems. But on the other side, the flip side of that coin is that you have all the original stuff. You have the United States Republic versus the United States of America Corporation.
yes,
When you're born into a hospital, you're given a birth certificate. That's your title of life that states that you're there. But on the other side, you were born and you have blood flowing through your veins. So you are the living, breathing person. In the corporation, it's a corpse. It's a dead entity. Not that you're dead, but the way that you're viewed in law is as a stack of paperwork. So
so let me even rewind it just so people have a understand that when you're born, you know, you are, you know, like you said, you have a live certificate of birth to show that the individual was born, like that you are a living, breathing person.
yeah,
You also become a corporate entity, like where, and that's when your name is in all capitals. Like, so if
yes,
you see that on any paperwork, if your name is in all capitals, and this is like when you get Social Security and all that stuff, that is like you as your corporate entity as part of the United States of America Corporation. Because basically, how the economy goes is, you know, you're a corporate entity because they assume you're going to have so much value in the work that you generate in your lifetime that, you know, so they're able to have, you know, money, like you factor into the economy in that way. The United States of America, the corporation, is based in DC, you know what I mean, versus like
yeah.
being, you know, a citizen of the United States country, like as a someone born into whatever state you're born in, things like that. I'm just trying to give a little bit more background because some people might be, what the fuck are these dudes even talking about? You know what I mean? But the part of you that has, put it this way, the part of you that has to pay taxes is your corporate account. You know what I mean? Not your you know, being a sovereign or a state national citizen. You know?
Well, even, you know, when you're born in the hospital, you get two different birth certificates. You have
Yes.
a certified birth certificate. That's the one that they want you to present, like when you enroll in grade school, junior high, high school, your first job, military, anything inside of that framework of the public system. There's also a document called the Certificate of Live Birth.
Yeah.
This has with lowercase, middle name, capital, lowercase, last name, capital, lowercase. That's the certificate that you start with. You go into your county building, you say, hey, I was born on this day, my name is this, and I would like my certificate of live birth. That was my first step to making corrections. So now I knew, okay, when you compare them, you can see it's obvious. Okay, this is one person, this one is, you know, registered totally different. That's me. And you have to assert that. You have to take time to go back now and unwind all these things you've gotten into. You've got to cancel a lot of these contracts,
Yeah.
because in the framework of a corporation, everything is based on contracts. It's never explained to us, so you have to find out about it later, if it's even in your wheelhouse to do that. But that's step one: certificate of live birth versus birth certificate. That's the public side versus private side. And now that you know that, you can start like, okay, well, what other contracts am I in? Well, every time that you've signed your name, you've offered a blank endorsement. That's your signature. That means they hand you the paper. They've laid out all the guidelines to what's on the paper. You've agreed to it. Okay. So you've went and got a job. That job enrolls you into the tax system. It enrolls you into, let's say, a 401k if you're, working a job like that, or your benefits. And what has essentially happened from the time that our country was founded until now is we've kind of flipped the script on us. We've gone from being the beneficiaries of being living men and women to the trustees of a corporation that we're completely unaware of. We're the ones responsible, and the people, the the powers that be, the all elusive they, are benefiting from our labor, our work, our ignorance, for lack of better terms. We just don't know any better. And the older you get, the more ingrained you are. So you will fight and defend the corporation. You'll defend your social platforms, your social security. You'll defend your investments that you've paid into all these years. Whether you wanted to pay into them or not, you had to, because you signed the dotted line with a blank endorsement. You didn't tell them anything different. You didn't state that you're standing on your rights. I know I have rights, but you've signed those away in trade for privileges. And unfortunately, privileges can be issued and revoked. Rights are God given. So until you take the rights back and then stand firm with knowledge that you are doing the correct thing that's best for you, nobody is any the wiser. So that's where I got so inspired, as I was being told a handful of years ago, when everybody else was being told, you got to shut down your business. Well, I don't want to shut it down. Well, you don't have a choice. Everybody's doing it, and we're saying you have to. That was a real trigger moment for me.
Yeah.
And I had never pushed back prior to that. I had never seen anything any differently prior to that, but it really struck a nerve to where I felt I had to do something, and all the griping and complaining in the world wasn't accomplishing anything in my own personal life. So I came across different podcasts along the way. I had a lot of time on my hands at this point. So I just dove in and started listening to the podcast. A lot of the stuff that Brandon Joe Williams was rapid firing, I was jotting down, and then taking time to go back and be like, man, this can't be right. There's no way this is even possibly correct. And you type in the codes, and the pages pop up from Cornell Law, and you're like, oh wait, this is a legitimate site. Well, what's it saying? And I've never done so much reading in all of my life. I'd never taken time to cross reference. I'd never knew that we had not only two systems operating, but two sets of language cohesively operating at the exact same time. What we are taught a word means is nothing like what it means in law. Well, I don't want to be a lawyer, but I also don't want to be blindsided by a word that I don't understand because I didn't take time to do it. I didn't take time to learn that there's two two valuable definitions of that same word. And that was really, really eye opening to a point where I kind of just disappeared long enough to really get my thoughts organized and get things planned out. Well, then I went from having LLCs and corporations because I had two or three different tattoo shops. I had a screen printing company. I had multiple rental houses. And the companies, I walked away from them. I didn't ask really for anything. Like one of the partners was like, hey, I'll pay your taxes, and that's my buyout. Fair enough. I don't intend to pay him anymore anyhow. So I allowed him to do that. And then I learned, through reading Title 26, which is the tax code that, well, it's never been ratified into law. It's a voluntary system. They offer paperwork that you can fill out appropriately, submit it, and you've changed the fiduciary obligation of the taxpayer. You've sent, I sent an affidavit, which I talk a lot about affidavits. 5 years ago, I didn't even know what that word meant. But, when you accompany certain documents with affidavits, it it offers notice. You are asserting your right. You're not asking permission anymore. You're just like, well, I'm on the same playing field as the government. They're no longer like, I'm not beholden to them. I'm not operating. I'm not asking for anything from the government. I'm not offering anything to the government. We're null and void now. And so that was my second step, basically. I figured out I was alive. I figured out that corporations pay taxes, and I was not a corporation. So I filed the paperwork to step outside of that system. Everything has pros and cons. If you want to be a person who lives in the banking system with a lot of debt and you want to be able to go to the bank and request loans, this may not be the path for you because you're going to figure out how you can make your own wealth and live off of it. Now, to me, I don't have tons of money in a bank, but I'm very rich in the amount of land I have, the love that I have for my wife, the family that I have, the friends that I have. That's enough. Everything else, I reduced all of my expenditures to a fraction of what I used to spend to uphold an image that I kind of got tired of maintaining. And it all hit at the same time. So my whole world kind of flipped upside down. I went from this kind of small town celebrity to moving into an area where nobody's ever heard of me, nobody knows me. I just operate totally different. I'm friendly with all of my neighbors. We're all very cordial and we help each other out. We have a community, but that is my wealth. And in time, I'll figure out other things. You know what I mean? I'll figure out how to keep generating a good income. We'll get later into how I restructured some stuff, but just sidestepping the corporate side of LLCs, corporations. I mean, I still am a self-employed um, business owner, but I'm just unincorporated now. And to do that, you can use a couple different tools like trusts. Trusts can be written by a living person, grantored by a living person, and the beneficiaries are living people. Um, that's one option, and ministries are another, which is the route that I chose to go with. So,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot here to unpack, and I figured out what our audio situation is. Whatever your setting is on the mic, if I'm talking and then you go to come in, it like clips. But if you're talking the whole time, it's fine. So, like maybe if we're talking to each other, like give it a second before you start talking after I stop. Because I don't know what the setting is, and it's like we're too deep into the episode now to mess around with technical stuff. But yeah, but But yeah, I mean, it's a wild thing. Like there's so much, and like you gave a real good overview, but like when you really start to research this stuff, you see how much craziness has happened between the founding of this country and then, the things that happened in the early 1900s that like really changed everything. With like, founding fathers were always, for better or for worse, because everyone's got their own opinions of how everything went. They were like, never give control of your money over to the central banks. Always keep your own United States, fund your own, mints and everything. And we did that. In the early 1900s, we signed on to the central banking systems, and that's what's put the country in so much debt because of the interest on all the dollars that are spent. And this is all not high level stuff, but this is, if it's your first time hearing it, you'll have to do research and go read the book The Creature from Jekyll Island, and it'll give you a better understanding of things. Or go look at like G. Edward Griffin stuff. But you'll see how messed up we are, and this and then look at United States corporation, and listen to Frank, read his book, go check out Brandon Joe Williams. I'm sure there's a whole other list of other people that you know of that might be good to listen to too. I've haven't gone super deep into it yet. I have a very surface like working knowledge, and I have a knowledge where I understand more than I can just talk about freely because I haven't delved nearly as deep as you. I'm going to be frank. What's put me off from jumping is that, between Chopperhead and the bar and the tattoo shop, I have so many fucking corporations because, like the property company is one thing, the business name is another corporation, like, the entity. And I wouldn't even know how to do it with like, it's one thing with the tattoo shop because, we can all, there's only a couple of us, or here at Chopper, there's only a couple of, but like at the bar, like we have like 14, 15 employees, like, you know what I mean? And that seems where it gets a little messy and a little more entangling. I'm like, how do I get out of all this stuff? But, these all, I'm not going to get every employee to disassociate from the, from the corporation. But, so that's where it gets really a little bit messy for me. And that's why I haven't really gone too deep into like doing it yet. But, maybe talk about like, at a general level, if it's like if this was someone's first time hearing about it, like a little bit of what the benefits, because you said there's pros and cons to everything, and it's like, what are the pros and cons of being in the still involved in the United States as a corporation, and then versus like being a state national? Because one thing that we've lost as a country for sure is that freedom comes with a high amount of social of personal accountability and personal responsibility. And I think that's kind of what you were getting at when you said that. Like, you can't just go to every bank and get a loan anymore. Like, you got to figure out a way to make things happen because you're not part of the general system anymore and things like that. So maybe before we even get into more of the next steps and everything, from your research, what are some of the benefits and drawbacks of like disconnecting?
Well, just like you were saying, when you get so invested and you have multiple companies and you've signed on to kind of live that American dream, make your own way, build your own business, it's hard to untangle that. That's why I walked away from the tattoo shops that I had. That's why I walked away from the screen printing company. I couldn't ask all of these people like, hey, let's just set this completely up different now, 20 years in, and we're going to restructure all of your lives to suit me. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
This is a personal thing. Even my wife still operates the same way she always did. It's not her. It's not her thing. This is my personal life experience. This is something that really drives me personally. My first name literally translates to free. Let's be frank. That's what it means, and I think that somewhere in the cosmos, that's why I decided to enter into this particular time space, into this avatar, and figure this out. Like, I've got perspective on both sides of the fence. I've had an opportunity to live on both sides of that fence, and for me personally, there's nothing about the way that I used to live that I miss. But it came with a lot of you go through all these phases of grief when you quit something. When I quit being a drinker, I went through the phases of grief of giving up all those friends and giving up the party life and giving up all the girls, and like that's not who I am anymore. I'm a different person, and when I overcame all that, life just got better. So I was scared to give up drinking because I didn't know if people were still going to like me. I didn't know if I was still going to be fun. But it's always that thing that we're most afraid of that we find our greatest joy on the other side of that thing. And for me, I've really started enjoying learning more in depth law. And I never thought that that would even be in my wheelhouse. I just wanted to be free. But to be somebody who asserts their freedom, you have to stand firm in law, regardless. It doesn't matter. So
And
that's kind of
you have to know
handcuff.
you have to know your shit too, because if you're operating a motor vehicle and you get pulled over and you're out of the system and you don't have a license anymore, or a vehicle registration, or the license plate, you got to be able to explain and be able
And
to
that
back up what you're doing.
you're exactly right. And I have had to go into court, and you have to learn the verbiage. You got to learn the vocabulary so that you don't get tripped up, because a lot of the questions that they ask are loaded questions. They already know the outcome if you answer the way that you're intended to answer. But when you answer what I consider appropriately, and you stay grounded and in your common law, then you walk away unscathed. You know what I mean? You may get some bumps and bruises as you learn to get through it, but I had to go in March for driving without a driver's license and driving an unregistered vehicle. And I explained, because I know that they carry the cams and all that, like, this is a process I'm going through. Please just go ahead and do what you've got to do on your end. I'll take care of it later on in the court. And I was able to do that. I was able to draw up the paperwork I needed. See, the thing is, when you operate in common law, you can't contract a bar card holding attorney to stand on your behalf. They can only stand on the behalf of a corporation. Dead entities can only contract with dead entities. Living can only contract with living. So when you show up on behalf of your straw man or ens legis or whatever term you want to use, it all comes down to you're standing on behalf of your corporation, and you are standing as the beneficiary, and you have to put the court as the trustee. You have to say on the record, for the record, I'm here on special appearance on behalf of, and then you proceed with the officer so and so tried to you know, put me under their jurisdiction. I don't live under their jurisdiction. This is a separate, it's just a whole basically script you go through and you speak it into existence. But you've got to be firm on it. You've got to know it inside and out before you ever get to that point. So I don't recommend people immediately throw their license out the window and they just let their vehicle lapse. And like eventually, if you get comfortable enough with language, sure. If you know the law well enough, theirs and common law, by all means, go for it. If you know how to restructure or write up and draw up trusts and you want to start a business, do that. If you know how to create a ministry, do that. Like I had to have help with some of those things, and it's expensive to get the help. But, I went 4 years, 5 years without utilizing a bank account. It's awful difficult to find tattoo supplies without a bank account that you can just order things online. You know, it's it's difficult to navigate life without having it. But now, under the ministry, which I'm a trustee of Homestead Ministry, I created it. You go online to the IRS and request your EIN number. So now you have a number to use. Well, with this type of ministry, there is no filing. at the end of the year. There's no taxes to withhold. There's no taxes offered. It is, it's ecclesiastic law. So that's where all the money that I make goes into that account, free and clear. So I'm able to benefit from that bank account where I can purchase things that I need for the homestead. And the ministry owns my vehicle. It owns the motorcycle. It owns each building. It owns the house. It owns the property, the land. I titled over the deed to the ministry, so I have nothing that can be taken from me. That's a benefit, but it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of extra filing. It's a lot of extra things to do to maintain that sense of freedom that I have. And it's not easy. It's sometimes your butthole puckers every time you see a state trooper. Like, it's the day I got to talk to him. The idea that you take your affidavits, it's called an affidavit of truth. I so and so recognize that I am not this entity with all caps, but rather this entity, and you have a little dash and a comma and a colon in between, and all of that matters when you sign paperwork. I don't just scribble my name. I hand print, and it's a long name, Franklin Eugene Whittington, but it's signed 1-308, which is the UCC code for withholding your rights. I withhold my rights without prejudice, without recourse. Franklin dash Eugene colon Whittington, comma, and then I might even give a notice as to who that is, administrator of Ens Legis. So it's a paragraph to write out. Nobody wants to do it. I got time.
Yeah.
I'll make them stand on the side of the road and lean in the car while I write it. I carry my own pen because it's got to be a particular color to really assert. Most often you'll get a black pen when you're signing your signature. I draw mine out with a blue pen, which indicates I'm a living man. And that stuff, it can get in the weeds too. It can get out there and seem a little hokey, but for me, it's worth it. And when I get a little bit of pushback, then I really feel like, okay, well, I'm onto something here. And I haven't dove too much into the financial side. There are guys that specialize in the financial end of freedom. Like, I just use my name and I go and my application is my money, and I'll file a UCC1 filing. I'm not that guy. I don't know all about that stuff. So I just focus on what the difference is between operating private and public.
Yeah.
And, I operate the whole ministry as a private membership association, which that's pretty easy to explain. When they come out, instead of signing a form that we would offer to the state for our inspections for tattoo shops, everybody signs a form. Out here, everybody signs a membership agreement. That is how they have access to the property, to the tattoo shop, to renting the cabin, to utilizing the wedding chapel and the reception facility. And it works out beautifully because it's all done private. I don't ask for a license. I don't ask for any kind of inspection. I don't ask for them to come in and contract with me, them being the state, the county, any municipalities. We manage all of it ourselves. We're adults, so we know how to draw the paperwork up. They know how to sign it. That's it. So I only do business with friends, family, and members. That's the only people that I interact with. And that simplifies things way down. So you could essentially open up and just pretty much any business. If you're a handyman, you can just service people who agree to sign your membership agreement. If you have a homeschool or a daycare and you're only, working with people who are members of your organization. Back in the day, I used to go into a lot of strip clubs, and they would always make me sign a paper and get a membership. It didn't make sense then, but now it makes perfect sense. Like, okay, well, this is why everybody was sitting around the tables doing cocaine and police weren't busting in the door. They had no jurisdiction to bust in a door. You know, they weren't contracted with them to serve and protect over that facility. And it's the same out here on the property. You know, everything managed in house.
Do you find that it's easier to do that in a place like Tennessee versus like other places you've lived? Like, is that why you chose
Well,
to go out there?
when I was in Illinois, that would have probably been one of the more difficult places to make that happen. And I had two houses side by side. One house, when it was before I owned it, it was a barber shop on the lower level and a rental space above that, just a residential rental. So when I bought it and I was leaving the public tattoo shop I had, I just opened up there, and that was kind of my practice ground. Like I had seen so many people over the years, and you've seen them, and they would start tattooing without a license, and that used to really get my goat. Like, how in the world are they not getting in trouble? What's going on? Why aren't they getting shut down? They should be kicking their door in. The reality is, there's nobody to kick their door in because they're not contracted into the corporation. They're not beholden to anybody because they've never asked for permission to do the tattooing. So they can never be denied permission to do the tattooing. And that when I came to that realization, when it became that crystal clear, like, oh, this is all about jurisdiction and whose jurisdiction you choose to be under. Like that's why they never get in trouble. Like unless somebody would say, uh, I got infected and I went to the emergency room. Well, now they're into the corporate side. The emergency room had to contact the health department. Well, now they're double in the public side. Then the health department can contract the police, triple. You know what I mean? So now they have reason to open investigation. But if none of those things occur, and there's no record of them doing anything. They don't have any paperwork to show. They don't have any proof of agency. There's nothing to shut down. There's
Mm.
no door to kick in. It's all hearsay. Um, so I have a huge sign in my front yard. It's kind of become a staple, but it just says Whittington Homestead Private Membership Association. That's basically an outward notice to the general public who happen all six cars that drive by in the course of a day. They know exactly that, this is private. It's you have to be part of the membership to even come on the property. So there's nothing to take from me. There's no doors to kick in. It's all operating in the private sector lawfully.
It's awesome, man. The one thing I like about your approach was exactly what you just laid out. Like, it's like, you're like, how can I do this and operate outside of the contracts of, the corporate entity? When I see a lot of stuff on like Brandon Joe's thing, there's a lot of people that are like trying to get out of contracts like that they signed up for, like, oh, how can I get my truck for free, or how can I get my mortgage? Like, that's what is off-putting to me, because I ain't trying to get over on anyone. I'm just trying to get out of things. You know what I mean? And that's why your approach resonated more. But one thing I was wondering, do you do like, have you gotten like, do you just drive around with no plate, or do you have one? Do you ever think about getting that? Like, he talks about those like diplomatic plates and stuff, because you can get that diplomatic passport. Have you gone down some of that route?
I have a plate that I created, and it just says ecclesiastic property, and then it's just got 1-308. I don't really have a plate that's. I have a Tennessee plate that's out of date currently, and it's funny that we brought this up because tomorrow I plan, and this is again, I'm going to preface the statement. Sometimes to maintain a healthy and happy relationship, you got to make compromise. So I'll start by saying that. My wife is terrified to drive my truck. She doesn't study the stuff the way I do. She doesn't want to interact with agency, and I respect that. So, because we have the ministry and the truck is owned by the ministry, I have a contract where I've signed it over with bill of sale that I carry in a big binder. For me, that's good enough. For her, not so much. So I'll be going to the county building and putting on a plate that will be the truck is owned by the ministry. So I'll be driving the ministry truck with the ministry plate, uh, grantored by the state. You know what I mean? It'll be a Tennessee state plate, but that's the compromise that I had to make because I'd rather see my wife happy than scared.
Yeah.
So we pick our battles. I've driven for 2 years without renewing registration. I'm going to chalk that off as a win for my fu to the man. But there again, it's not worth risking my relationship over my particular values. I'm still young enough and flexible enough. I can work. I still get to maintain my personal freedom because that I don't own the truck anyhow. So I'm just doing what I have to do to make everybody happy. Mm. And I don't say, I don't necessarily, I'm not stoked about it, but I'm also not upset about it either. So up until tomorrow, which obviously it'll all be dealt with by the time this airs, but I'll be running a Tennessee plate again, just not in my name.
It's wild. It's wild to be in like a mixed household, like where you've disconnected from the corporation, but your wife is still hasn't made the plunge yet. Like how? Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, we gotta give it a second, like because of the cutouts. Sorry, man. What was that?
I said I don't expect her to change anything about the way she's got going in. Like she's an RN for a living, and still works a couple days a week. So I want her to just have her own life experience while I have mine.
So she's still on the tax roll and all of that stuff, like, that's wild. So it worked, but it still works out. Like, so it's.
Oh yeah.
You just don't. You can't put file jointly because you don't even exist in the corporate in the corporation anymore. She's not married to another corporate entity.
That's right.
Wild stuff. What's for people that might just be started down this journey, what's like, I know you've already kind of you've hit on a lot of this, but like what would, obviously get your live, your certificate of live birth and, read your book and stuff, but like what have been some of the major pitfalls that you've experienced or like, that you would warn people about? Like, here's some of the things that you're going to encounter that are going to be the toughest things or something like that.
I think some of the tougher things are like traffic stops, learning to stand your ground without sounding kooky, know when to speak and know when to try to educate and know when to just shut up and remain silent because it is one of your rights to just keep your mouth shut. And it's hard when you start learning it because you want to tell everybody, but you can just see the lights turn off on some people, and it's okay just to like, all right, this is definitely not the conversation to have with these folks. It's going to be just fine. Keep the information to yourself if you need to. Jot it down on paper if you really got to get it out. Write a book and send it out in the ether. And that way it'll land in the hands of the people that maybe want to know more about it. But I spend a lot of time just barraging clients as I'm tattooing. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and this is going to happen and I'm going to. Granted, I stand firm on everything I said, but not everybody wanted to hear it. And you will, in fact, come off sounding crazy to the ears that have no interest in it. This is something that to people who have never heard any of these terms, to people who have never heard a whisper about this movement, this is where loony bins came into play back in the early 1900s, 1930s, when people were making this big shift in life and like, no, but Grandpa used to live in common law. That doesn't exist. It's a myth. It's not, but you're gonna sound crazy to probably 80% of listeners that are going to be checking this out. But I do encourage
not the clientele of this podcast. People, when I had Brandon Joe on, that was one of my biggest episodes. It was wild. It like spread like wildfire, and people like, "What? Are you serious? This is real?" And I knew like friends of mine that started going down the rabbit hole and taking his signing up for his course, his video course, like that his YouTube course and everything. And I know he's still been doing a lot of stuff. He's got a lot going on. I probably should have him on again just to kind of get an update. But oh, sorry, man. It sounded like you were going to go somewhere. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I'm just riffing.
Yeah. By the way, just, you have the most peaceful, like all of your background audio, I can hear like birds and like crickets and like all kinds of just like wildlife. It sounds like you're on this like nature preserve, like, it's great.
Front porch.
What's that?
This is just the front porch.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah.
I encourage people to take time, and in the book, I tried to put in some of the more valuable and primary UCC codes. It's a uniform commercial code. And what that means is all of statutory law is based on statutes and codes. So when you break that down versus just like common law being do no harm to others and, you know what I mean, help your neighbor and follow the 10 commandments or whatever, like, it helps you understand why you have rights, where they've went. It helps you determine what the difference is between rights and privileges, and then you kind of want to cross-reference some of the verbiage, some of the language with Black's Law Dictionary is a really good resource, as opposed to Webster's dictionary that we all got in public school. I think there's a strong reason why some of the information that is free, and some of the information that is more difficult to get your hands on is more difficult, or it's just not spoken of. I think that's the difference between like esoteric, the hidden knowledge, versus exoteric, which is freely given. When things are given away freely, there's a reason, and it's typically part of your program. It's part of what everybody collectively knows to be the truth. And if everybody believes that thing to be true, it is in fact true. So my personal goal is to shift enough people into recognizing a secondary value of truth that it becomes as firm of a truth as what we're offered freely. Yeah. So I'm trying to, I got to make a little bit of something to keep the momentum going, and it helps me continue projects on the property. Otherwise, I could give it away for free, but Amazon won't let me do that. So that's where I would start for people who are really at an entry level, is just taking that tidbit of information, look at certain codes, take time to look them up, take time to cross-reference them with the dictionaries that law uses, and get a new vocabulary started, and start working that into your day-to-day life. When you're having conversations, recognize when something is referenced in public and when something's referenced in private, and try to avoid an attachment to either side or the other. I think if you can focus on a connection with a thing over an attachment of a thing, you'll suffer a whole lot less as you detach from one system as you integrate a new system into your life. It's been a very peaceful process for me after I got over that hump, after I got done being angry and sad and trying to um, make amends with what I had going on versus what I want to go on. You know what I mean? It's like the whole series of the grief of letting go of the attachment to this idea that everything is exactly how it's laid out. You got to get a job. You got to go to college. You know what I mean? All these things that we're told as we grow up as our early childhood program. I mean, it's bombarded on us. So we don't have necessarily an umbrella over us to shield us from the nonsense. So when you finally become aware of it, you it's like the allegory of the cave. You finally make your way out and you realize there's a whole world out there that's completely untapped. There's a whole sense of freedom far beyond what we've been told freedom looks like. You know, when you're not purchasing a license to drive a vehicle or asking permission to travel, when you're not, um, I don't know. I'll get on a tangent, but when you recognize the difference of the perceived freedom versus actual freedom, and I don't have the stresses every April that used to debilitate me to a point where I'd get sick to my stomach over the amount I was spending, and then not knowing where those taxes go and what am I really funding, and then you just see explosions of war all around you, and that's my own personal take on it. But I don't have any guilt for anything going on out in the world because I'm not participating in it. I'm not funding it. I'm not offering anything to it. And I'm sure that triggers people and makes them upset. Like I'm a deadbeat to society, but I'm not. I'm not operating in your society unless I go into your store or I go in to support you in some way. Like that's my only contribution is direct contact rather than indirect. I don't have any third parties managing things for me.
Now, you mentioned travel. Did you maintain a driver's license or like a passport or something if like you wanted to engage in like air travel, or are you only going to be land travel? You know what I mean, like by car.
Well, what I did is, as part of my status correction, which is long form is political status correction, because when you're born, you're issued citizenship, and that citizenship is, I mean, the definition is as a employee of the corporate state. So when I filed for my passport, everywhere that it requested whether you're a citizen, no. Where's your parents citizens? No. Nobody that I engage with are knowingly and willfully citizens. If they were, they would be mad at themselves. So I believe that very strongly, that you tell them what you are. So when I got my passport card, I have what's considered a state national passport, and that's what I travel with. That's what I drive on the roadways with. Um, so if I do get pulled over, I present that, and you can tell on the card because it has little asterisks up in the upper right hand corner, and different asterisks mean different levels of basically how far you've taken your state nationalism.
Mm.
And as I'm relatively new in this whole movement, with 5 years under my belt, I haven't untied every contract that I've opened up and engaged in. I still have a mortgage that I'm paying for, so I can't necessarily just write that off. And I don't know the ins and outs of it. And there again, that's not my forte. Uh, I'm gonna. I got a couple years left to pay on it, and then I'll resubmit my passport. It's a DS11 is the form you file. So that's what I can travel with, and It's issued through the State Department, so they have been notified that I've corrected my status. My local agencies, by way of receiving a ticket, offering an affidavit of truth, they've been notified, which I think is probably why I don't get pulled over. When they've ran my expired plate, my name comes back as a do not detain. So it's not beneficial for them to pull me over. Uh, Even though I'm not unpleasant if I get pulled over, I'm not trying to educate anybody on the side of the road like I talked about earlier. I just keep my mouth shut, offer my passport, explain why I'm offering it instead of their driver's license, accept their ticket, sign it appropriately with the endorsement. Um, it's considered a special endorsement because I'm telling them I stand on my rights, no recourse, without prejudice, and then, working in administrative capacity. So it's a lot to put on there,
Mm.
but it's worthwhile when you understand what you're actually doing. The last couple of houses I sold, that took forever because you got to sign, you know, 30 pieces of paper, and every one of them, my wife was just like, "Can you just get a rubber stamp made?" I probably should,
Yeah.
but I haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, that's the thing, right? Is like the transition where you still have obligations in that other world that you got to work out of. That would be a freaking night. That's what I mean. For me, it would be a nightmare, and it's very daunting and overwhelming. And I'm already working 7 days a week. That's what's been kind of holding me back. But when you've had interactions with whether police or state officials or like court or just dealing with like the town or the city or the state, are they? Is it something they know about, or is it something that like like me? And I'm sure not every officer knows about this stuff. I'm sure some do because they've run into a state national somewhere along the way. But is it something that you find a lot of resistance to, and you just have to hold your ground, or is it something like they're like, all right, well, we know, you know what I mean? And it's like, and so, all right, you know what I mean? Like the jig's up, we know, cool, whatever.
I would say on the ground floor, like out here in population, it is not common knowledge.
Mm.
It's not trained in the police academy because all information is pretty compartmentalized. If you work in a factory and you're on the line, you just do that job, that one thing. You can't tell somebody how the entire vehicle is made if you're just doing, if you're just the spark plug guy. But I kind of view it that way. The police are just doing the job they know how to do, the job they were taught to do. They know the codes and the statutes, but not necessarily the deeper lying laws. So, again, if you try to educate somebody on their own job, number one, you're going to create a hostile environment for them. You're going to irritate them. You're going to push their buttons. That's not something that interests me. I'd rather cut a few jokes, try to keep it light, everybody go home safe and sound. Deal with it later. Deal with it with the knowledge of how to fill out your paperwork, how to submit your affidavit, how to work with the court, not against the court. The original systems were set up to where we are the beneficiaries, and that's all we're doing is stating I'm the beneficiary of these actions. I'm not the trustee. I'm not the one responsible. I'm not the responsible party. So once you've signed it appropriately, they submit that to the court. They've already done half the job for you by citing you the ticket, giving you the opportunity to state your case, to state that you know your rights. That's already done. So now you follow that up and send in your affidavit of truth or your motion to dismiss, however you want to approach it, whatever level you're at. But I think, again, maintaining a calm and peaceful nature, no matter what, should just be, it's just integrity. You know, Nobody wants to be the 6 o'clock news guy who was the crazy sovereign citizen on the side of the road, who wouldn't comply and wouldn't, all the wouldn'ts. Like, just do what has to be done to get through the stop as quickly and peacefully as possible. When you go into court, there's already rules established. There's rules to the court system. There's a flow to it. Go in and speak your piece. Make sure it gets on the record for the record, and then it has to be submitted. You know what I mean? Now you've put everybody in that particular system on notice. Like, oh, he's not even under our jurisdiction. It's not part of this system. So not much we can do here. When I went in, I ended up with a $10 fine that I had to pay for no license. No, everything was just dismissed. And I think it was more of just like um, an inconvenience. They just wanted to kind of offer me some inconvenience like I offered them. So that was fine. And I was still learning. And I still have a lot more to learn. I'm by no means the authority on the matter. I'm just trying to figure this out like everybody else, but trying to take a more reasonable and authentic approach as opposed to trying to be combative or be rude or over insulting. Like, I recognize people just have a job to do. That's what they get paid to do. It's, taxpayer funded. I can honestly say I'm gratefully not funding it out of my pocket. So I just have to stand on the knowledge.
One thing I would like your opinion on this, and this is all speculation. One thing I worry about is if this does catch on and like say even something small like 1% of the population does this, like what kind of bullshit they might try and push through to like put an end to it. You know what I mean? Like I know they probably can't, but they can do things to make everyone's lives like, a lot harder, I think.
I believe that is a possibility, but I spend a lot of my time trying not to focus on negative outcomes. You can really get wrapped up on scrolling through your social media and find all of these horrible stops, traffic stops and police interactions and court interactions. And because I talk about it all the time and our phones obviously listen to everything we say, it's constantly trying to push that into my algorithm. And I just can't let that be my focus in life. I have something much greater and grander at play than to be bothered by the negative flip side of what could happen. That's my mindset, anyhow. And there are days where, I've created extra challenges for myself, and you have to make the bed you lay in, and this is what I've chosen. So I'm willing to step up to the challenges when they arise, but I don't go out of my way to create challenges out of situations if I can avoid it. I'm not like a real confrontational person, and I'm not out here trying to confront anybody. Or, I get real frustrated when I see people doing what they're calling First Amendment auditors. Have you seen any of this online?
A little bit.
So it's basically like guys who purposely start filming on public ground just so they can educate people or trip people up who are doing their job, trying to make them step outside of their rights, their constitutional oath, and then, you're not living up to your oath. I'm suing you. Like, it's not for me. To me, that's pretty nonsensical. Let's focus on the other side of it. Have you ever heard of the 100 monkey theory?
No, I might have. Go into it, and then I might
So it,
trip something.
it kind of me because basically there was a group of monkeys on a beach and they were being fed um, a fruit every day, and they were tossed into the sand and covered in sand. They'd dig them up, they'd eat them, and then one monkey went and washed his fruit. Well, now he's eating clean fruit. And by the time two or three others saw it, well, now this whole island is picking up their fruit, take it over, wash it. And by the time it got to 100 monkeys, across the pond was another group of monkeys, and they also started washing their fruit before without ever having any interaction, just through the ether. And I truly believe that enough of us get on the correct course, a different course than we're currently on, and open up this window of opportunity to this untapped freedom, it'll be so much more easy for this system to kind of get more of a foothold and not look crazy to the people who are embedded in the system. It'll look tangible. People will be able to see it in real life actively working. Oh, if you wash the fruit, you don't get grit in your teeth, you know? And that's my ultimate goal is to, you know, influence just enough people that it tips that scale just a little bit to where it kind of takes the rough edges off of the crazy looking side of it. Like, oh, okay, here it is in action, functionally applied, working appropriately, and everything is cool. Everything is okay. People are just peacefully living out their own personal American dream, living in the republic rather than in the United
Corporation.
States of, you know. And I don't mean that as a political stance on being Republican. I just mean, it was our country was designed as a republic, common law, easygoing, peaceful country, and it's morphed into something crazy that everybody has agreed is standard. Um, and the people who have decided to be peaceful look crazy. So I really want to kind of tap into that 100 monkeys theory and just kind of tip the scales and knock the edges off a little bit, soften it up to where it might look a little bit more tangible. I want to hopefully connect with people before they start engaging in so many contracts. Like, here's another option before you sign that first W-2. Here's a Form 56. This is a W-8BEN that your company can file for you, so you're not doing a withholding tax on me, the individual. Like, I'll come to work, you're saving money, I'm saving money, everybody's happy. Um, it's just a matter of showing people how it's done, and all the ins and outs, not just a surface level, not just here's the codes, go figure it out, but here are the codes, and here are some examples of what that means. Here's some interpretations. Here's some case law to back up that statement. And you don't even have to understand case law at that point. You just know that the Supreme Court um, abides by the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. Boom, we're there. Now let's just stand firm on what that document says. Let's understand we didn't write it, so we have the right to interpret it. We are the beneficiaries, and now we're actively abiding by the supreme law of the land above codes and statutes, which is a secondary set of rules that everyone is taught to abide by.
Yeah, and so that's a great way to put everything into perspective. Outside of your book, obviously, and I'll show it again, Freedom Rekindled. It's on Amazon. Is a good first step. Like, what are some resources that you recommend, or like where should people go to find out more information about this? Obviously you've sifted through a lot of it and have weeded through the stuff that could be a little, like with anything, unfortunately, with everything, people get involved and there can be like misinformation for one reason or another. But like, what are some of the more reputable or like easy to understand, like first steps? Like where should people look for this type of information? Get your book, but where else can people find out more information that is like reputable and solid?
There's actually, and I'm not going to be able to cite their names without scrolling through, but there's a guy that I really like to follow on Instagram. His name is Landis White, and he teaches a lot about trusts. He also offers to set people up with trusts. Um, I'm happy to work with people and help them restructure businesses and ministries, where I help you create the ministry if you want, set you up with your EIN, walk you through how to set up that bank account. Um, Brandon Joe Williams is a great resource. It's just a matter of make sure you got a pen and paper handy and the pause button ready, because it's a lot of listen to. I think, and don't quote me on it, but I think he's got maybe a 28, 29 day course, and it's typically free. I think it's on YouTube now. There's like a 2.0, Brandon Joe Williams Contract Killer. That's a kind of a breakdown of giving people an understanding of what does it mean to even be in contract, what does it mean to be under a jurisdiction, how do you change jurisdictions. He's got a really good breakdown of that. But there again, take notes
Yeah.
on anything you see. Take notes.
Yeah,
But
he had he I saw a bunch of, I think I got almost all the way through the first course, but I know he took it down and revamped it. Like you said, that he's got a 2.0. He's also a funny guy, you know what I mean? He's a character. So
I
like
told people to watch it before, and I have to preface it with, look, he's pretty vulgar, and he gets on some tangents, and his voice gets real high when he gets excited. But just get the information, because that's what it comes down to is get the information, but also verify the information. Make sure that you can prove it. And once you prove it, now take time to get to know the information. I'm currently working on developing an app for your phone, and and I've had some friends who are like, they sell these programs that you can carry these binders in your book, which I carry one, and it just breaks down law. It's got an affidavit in it of truth, and um, but my buddy was like, well, I ride a motorcycle. I need something I can fold up and put in my wallet. So my thought was, well, shit, everybody's got their phone on them. So I'm working on and I don't know, I'm not tech savvy, so this may take weeks or months to put together. I don't know, but it's basically going to be just kind of a quick recall for information. You go to the app and it'll have like scripts that where you can what to say to certain law agencies. If you're dealing with the sheriff, you're going to talk differently than if you're talking to a police officer, than if you're talking to a judge. So these scripts are available. It's going to have a little plug and play affidavit printable section. You type your information in, your location, and then it'll have like a quick 2-minute audio course, basically. What is UCC 1308, and it'll give you a little synopsis of it. That's the overview of what I'm trying to develop, um, so that people can have it at their fingertips, ready, and it just be a little service, basically. But Landis White, there's another account called Swipe Over who puts out some fantastic content in this field. Um, there's just a handful of people, but there again, you still want to take time to verify it. Make sure that what they're putting out, like that you resonate with it, that it aligns with your moral compass, and you know what I mean. There's going to be a lot of habitual line stepping where people are going above and beyond the call of duty and telling you to do things that maybe you're not ready for. You don't know enough about it to implement it. Stand firm on that. So take it slow. That's not It's not a race. It's not a sprint. This is a marathon. I'm 47 years old, so I I got another 30 years to figure it all out. But in that time, I'm definitely living more peacefully, more calmly, less stressed, less anxious. And those were some of those were some of the factors that added to those emotions I felt, coming up, being a business owner from such a young age and being in that system that I couldn't control. In life and in law, we can only control what we create. If we didn't create it, we don't have control over it. We can just utilize it, abide by it, or discard it.
Awesome, man. Anything else that we didn't touch on that you think is important to get out there?
Man, I think we covered pretty much. It'll be right after we get off of here, and I'll be like, "Oh, I should have said." I'll be texting you, man. I should have said. But honestly, I think we dumped a lot of information out there, just surface level enough that people can kind of manage to start dipping their toe in the idea of this other system. And I encourage people to really to walk into it slow, take time to get to understand the language, take time to understand the public versus private. You can navigate both at the same time. It's your life experience, so design it to what resonates with you the best, what makes you feel the best about how you're living life, and let that kind of be your guiding light into a sense of freedom. One person's freedom may look different than another's, and there's nothing wrong with that. As long as people are doing their best to be their best, by all means, live life to the fullest.
Hell yeah, man. And where can people, I'll have a link to the book in the show notes, but where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
And I go through Facebook, which is under Whittington Homestead, Hittington Homestead. And then on Instagram, the handle is Little Frank, LITTLEFRANK underscore free underscore man underscore. And man, I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can also reach us at by email if that's more suitable to people. Whittington Homestead 25 at gmail.com. And there again, we directly answer all the questions and comments, and I'm not overwhelmed with a barrage of messages every day, so I got time to talk.
And I'll have all your contact information in the show notes in case someone's driving around listening right now. You don't got to worry about writing it down. It'll be in the show notes later. Click on it. Hit Frank up if you got any questions, but definitely pick up the book. Like I said, I haven't read a book cover to cover ever, I don't think, and I got this one because it was interesting, captivating, and easy enough to get through. Meaning, like some of the law stuff can get so dense, but you did a really good job of breaking things down and explaining things, and then giving like examples and how to and checklists and everything. That makes everything, the process, a lot easier to navigate and understand, I think. So you did a great job with that, bud.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And it needs, it's good information for any level, even if you've already started the process, or haven't heard of it, or, it's good for any level of where you're at. But again, dude, thanks for coming on, and, we'll definitely do something down the road, do a follow-up. We talk offline every now and then. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always interested in hearing how the journey's going, and I'm sure we'll talk some more. And next time I'm out in Tennessee, dude, I'm going to hit you up because I got a bunch of friends over in Nashville, and I'm out there sometime, and it's a good time. And I want to see the setup and everything,
I'm out. I would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, thanks again, man, for taking the time to talk to us today. And everybody go check it out. Go check them out. Get that book. Even if it's something you're vaguely interested in, support it. Keep everything going. And it's definitely going to put a different way of thinking about things in your mind. And it's going to feel overwhelming at first. And then you're going to look at things, and everything's going to make a lot more sense, right? Like there's like Like at first you're like, what the fuck's this going? Whatever. Nah, there's no way. And then you're like, oh shit, look at this. Like you start seeing things, and then you're like, oh shit, this is real.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sure is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, and I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the platform and the opportunity to chat with you about it.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I'm going to shut this off, but I'm going to end the recording, but I'm not hanging up. So hold on 1 second here.